Francesco, good to have you on the programme with us. Now, before we get into what's gone wrong for the moderates, let's actually go into what's gone right for Le Pen's national rally. Why have the disenfranchised voters bought into their rebrand, as our correspondent was saying just there?
Oh, good evening. Well, I think it's been a long time in coming. Essentially, the war in Ukraine, high inflation, dissatisfaction with the agricultural policies of the European Union, clearly high levels of migration and the debate that that's given rise to, and generally a unhappiness with the style of government of Macron and the president. And actually, there were indications of, if you like, this groundswell of dissatisfaction in the parliamentary elections that followed his election, where, there was no majority. And quite surprisingly, for a newly elected president, the French people did not give him the majority in parliament in order to be able to govern. So it's been a long time coming, really. Of course, if I may add, no jurisdiction, no state is completely isolated. And I guess many in the French electorate saw that it's not the end of the world if people do vote for what are considered to be hard right or far right parties, what happened in Italy. And in many ways, Italy has perhaps proven to be the political laboratory of what could happen in other European countries. So that's where it's come from.
OK, so let's just pick up on what you were saying there about the Iron having plausible plans for the future of France. But let's specifically zero in on their plans for the French economy.
Yes, they want to spend money that France clearly hasn't got. And the other thing, of course, is that they are claiming that they're going to do what Mrs. Thatcher did in the United Kingdom many years ago, and that is they're going to get a rebate from the French, from the European Union. Look, their plans are not credible economically. They might be pleasing to the ear of the poor people who have suffered over the last few years. But I think that, tomorrow, if by chance tonight they emerge with a majority, incidentally, I don't think that will happen. High turnouts don't necessarily mean that their supporters have got out en masse to elect them, though it could be that. No, I think that we will see the consequences of the results tomorrow in the financial markets. They've already expressed great fears of what could happen in France. But by the way, we must not just talk about the results for the far right, because the far left also has some rather interesting policies with quite potentially destabilizing consequences.
Indeed, and let's focus on them then, because traditionally we know that these parties across the spectrum, they do manage to unite to keep the far right out. So could they potentially be doing that in the second runoff?
That is the $54,000 question. It is actually quite extraordinary that this is the highest turnout since the 1970s. The only previous occasion when I can remember something similar was in 2002, when there was a fear that the far right might do well. This was during the Chirac period, when there was a fear that the father of Le Pen, Jean-Marie, might actually do very well. And there the turnout went up. So how can we explain the increased turnout of what, 20% on the previous elections? So my hunch is that a lot of people in France have probably turned out to vote because they fear what could happen after 8 o'clock tonight. Though I could be wrong, as I've said previously, predictions in politics are risky. But please don't forget that even if either the far right or the far left do very well, it's not likely that either will get a majority. So there's going to be a lot of horse trading, particularly on the centre left, despite the fact that the far left has been heavily criticised, to what happens on July the 7th. The other thing is this, that cohabitation between a president of the Republic who may be disliked, but who was elected by the people 2 years ago, and a parliament that has been elected by a different majority. Cohabitation has happened before, it will happen again. If, let us say, the far right has won this time or emerges as the largest party, it will be different from previous occasions, because here we're talking about a party that has its roots in Vichy. They were always considered to be outside the constitutional pale. And I think that that will give rise to some problems. But the other thing is this. We mustn't, and here I guess constitutionalists will be much in demand over this. We need to look at the French Constitution. And I think that whilst Article 20 and Article 21 clearly establish that the government directs the policy of the nation, and the Prime Minister does that, there is no doubt that Article 5, Article 16, and other articles give the President quite significant powers of oversight and blockage.
Okay, Francesco, we're going to have to leave it there. But one question we didn't ask is whether, minorities will also be able to cohabit with Le Pen and co. But we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your insights. Thank you so much.
Okay. Good night.